They had Western on,
Yeah.
but.
I'd like to call the October 8th, 2018 East Ascension Drainage to order. Mr. Turner might be running a little bit late.
Aaron Lawler, he's running late.
Mr. Aaron, he's running late also. With that, Mr. Clough, would you give invocation followed by the pledge?
Everyone, please stand. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, we appreciate the time and the trust that the people of Ascension Parish has given us to try to do their deeds and do it honestly and express our opinions and those of the constituents. Lord, we ask that you continue to watch over us and take us through the remainder of this hurricane season without damage. Lord, it's with special hand we ask that you look down on the Fife family, for Joe Fife, who's battling pretty hard right now. We ask that you give him strength and bring him back. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anyone wishing to speak on any agenda item, please sign in with Ms. Deb. Yeah, I got those on my mind. 12. Yeah. Number 3, I'm going to pull number 12, agenda item number 12. All right, number 4, we're going to accept the minutes for September 10th.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lambert. So that's accepted. Other than just getting this pulled with on that agenda item number 12, hopefully we'll have some good news coming forth with our neighboring parish. Well, now we'll move on to number 6, drainage report, Mr. Turo.
We have a couple of projects going on now. Elos Environmental is still working on permit applications for shredding and ditch relocation projects. We have HNTB that is working on the Bayou Conway Panama Canal watershed. They have maps that's been submitted to FEMA, and they're waiting for a response from FEMA in that regard. And then our other two projects we have ongoing, we have speakers representing the engineering firms that are doing the work for us. First, we have H. Davis Cole that is working on the New River Canal drainage project. We have Mr. David Martin here that's going to give a presentation.
Good evening. As Joe said, my name is David Martin. I'm with H. Davis Cole and Associates. We are the consulting engineer for the parish regarding the New River Channel Improvements Project. So I have a brief PowerPoint that I'd like to go through very quickly, if I may. I don't know if this is going to work. So,
David, point it. Try it again.
There we go. All right. The 65% design submittal for the entire project area is complete. The parish and the drainage district should be reviewing those documents. That would consist of construction plans and as well as construction specifications. Topographic survey has been completed for the entire project area. One of the things that we've done, working with Mr. Turo and Mr. Savoie, is we've commenced design of the entire project. We'll talk about that later. This sort of project is somewhat scalable in that it can be adjusted in its scope to match parish funding for budget years if necessary. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Geotechnical engineering field work is underway. Actually, it's been completed. They're working away on their analysis. We should have a report back from them in a few weeks. This is important here. The jurisdictional determination by the Corps has been completed. ELOS Environmental has completed their wetlands delineation. Our 214 person at the Corps is working on our permit application. A DOTD permit application has been submitted. The area engineer's office has been very cooperative with us. We've also been in dialogue with Kansas City Southern Railroad, and as predicted, they've been probably the least easy entity to work with at this point. We've also been working with Jackie at the City of Gonzales. They have plans and permit application currently. We did identify some small pockets of wetlands, but fortunately, it looks like in working with DELOS, we've been able to develop a contractor's access plan, or will be able to avoid those areas. So as of now, assuming that holds up, no mitigation will be required for the project, and that's huge. That should allow us to streamline the process moving forward. As I alluded to earlier, we have a 214 person at the Corps. They're working with us on our application. They're working hand in hand with ELOS, and that should expedite those applications. We're not anticipating any issues with DOTD or the City of Gonzales. As far as the railroad, I can't really say much. We haven't had a whole lot of conversation with them at this point. Our updated cost spending for the project, that's 2.7 miles of major maintenance, ditch clearing, and shaping, is about $5.3 million. This includes 80,000 cubic yards of material to be dredged. 20,000 cubic yards of material will be used to shape some of the low spots to make sure that we have a consistent slope and consistent cross-section. This results in a net increase of 60,000 cubic yards of storage in the project limits, which is equivalent to 36 acre-feet of storage. One way to visualize that is it's the same as approximately 30 football fields covered in 1 foot of water. That's one way that could be visualized. We'll be removing the New River weir and excavating, shaping the channel to maintain consistent side slopes and a consistent bottom elevation. This will allow for vegetation maintenance by conventional methods by the district. All of our work is anticipated to be completed within the existing boundaries of the New River, so from top of bank to top of bank. We're not going to be requiring any new waterway, right-of-way, rather. I'm sorry. The anticipated water depth will be 2.5 feet along the entire project. This can be maintained by the Marvin Borough Drainage Pump Station. This will also allow you, by removing the New River weir, to pump the segment of the channel down completely in the event of, if we're anticipating a major weather event. This is a graphic depiction of the project limits currently from Smith Bayou to the New River weir. We'll be crossing Burnside Avenue, the Kansas City Southern Railroad Bridge, as well as Airline Highway, and terminating along Weber City Road near the Walmart. The typical cross-section will look something like this. The channel width will vary. It will stay within the existing banks. We'll have a consistent bottom elevation and then consistent side slope, which should make maintenance easier and will provide more storage, as we've talked about. We're on schedule to deliver our 100% design documents sometime in November. As we've talked about before, though, the USAC, Army Corps of Engineers permit application is going to be the critical path. We're doing everything we can to expedite that. Having that 214 person involved is certainly helpful. Kansas City Southern Railroad permit could be an issue. We're a little bit concerned about working out an agreement with them. However, we'll be providing some provisions within the contract to allow us to work around that. We may delay that work, omit that segment of the channel from the project until such time as we reach an agreement, or table it until such time as we do. We anticipate bidding the end of this year, first part of next year, and anticipate beginning construction in the first quarter of next year. Thank you for your time.
Any questions from Mr. David? Mr. Dawson?
Maybe I missed some of this. You know, I remember us talking about the weir. Honestly, I don't remember us. When was this entire project approved to clean this and do this? I remember distinctly talking about the weir, but I don't remember us talking about spending $5.3 million. Is that just I just forgot? Is that what it is? When was it, anyway? When was it approved?
Mr. Goulart?
I remember the conversation past the weir. But this is the first time I remember seeing $5.3 million. So maybe somebody in the drainage department can bring us up to date on that.
Councilman, we came back several meetings ago, brought back the proposal to you guys, and we wanted to make sure that you all knew the whole budget was the 5, rounded up to 6 million at the time, but we did come back and let you guys know prior to going to bid, we would bring this back to you for approval to go to bid.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm still.
Mr. Johnson?
it's my understanding Davis Cole presented it to us and said this is the worst case scenario. I mean, that's the most we could spend, and that if we could utilize some of the spoils, the dredge spoils, rather than having to dispose of them, that cost would go down. And we also talked about doing it in phases so that, not looking at 5.3 million all at once. They're going to do a certain section of it, the first phase of the contract, and move upriver in phases so that we're not looking at it all at once. And he said there could potentially also be some DEQ money available, or maybe Corps of Engineers. Some agency might be able to assist us with this
We had seeked the city of Gonzales.
in the city. That's right.
But that's why we came back to you guys to amend Davis Cole's contract, getting everybody on the same page that the city of Gonzales will not contribute. We wanted to bring it to them for a beautification portion of the project, possibly getting some funding from them, but they opted out of that.
Yeah,
That's when we brought it to you guys for approval to move forward a design if that's what the board wished. And at that time, his contract was amended for the amount that his contract is for, but it was directed at the final bid docs that we would come back to the board, present to you before we go forward. And that's why you have the phasing options in his design, is because the board can do as it wish. Do we want to bid out the whole project, or do we want to do this in phases to budget?
Mr. Kluwer?
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember back, it's been a couple of years we're talking about this. The original focus of the mission here, and, this looks like it's almost entirely in the city of Gonzales. But I mean, what's the value? What's the value? We're gonna remove the weir, so did all that other need dredging? I'm just asking.
You taking out
I
about
remember
a-
some years ago, several years when talking about this was like at 1.5, 2 million, over in those, because we had somebody else that gave proposals on that. So,
But you are increasing the capacity because you're taking out about 1.5 feet of dirt out, and you're removing the weir, so everything can be tied into the pumps. I mean, that's the big advantage of this, is that everything will be tied into the pump system, as opposed to before. You always, you always retained water. Plus, it's real shallow for the most part. So, like right now, it's pretty shallow.
yeah,
But this will be tied into the pumps. It's all about drainage.
yeah, and I just remember back some talk about, upriver, as we go further upriver towards Smith Bayou, they was talking about, down low, the second tier. You get the highways up here, and then you go down the second tier before the slope and everything. So this is not a bunch of beautification project, is it?
No, it's a drainage project.
I know that.
We
That's
did
all.
have discussion with the city of Gonzales, and we did incorporate the areas near Coontrap Road that are really steep. It's very hard to maintain those sections, so these cross sections would have a tapered slope to where you would be able to maintain them down to the water's edge. And also, we were looking at, if this thing gets phased out, where the board does want to do all of these phases, we would start looking at the upper branches upstream of this for future projects to carry on beyond this one. The upper branch going up to Goudin, the upper branch of New River towards Gosmer, those potential areas that this thing could go further up to rework in the future. So those are some of the long-term outlooks of it.
Mr. Dawson?
I'm still not clear. What are we being asked to approve tonight, and what has been approved?
As far as I can see, it's just he's giving a report right now, and that's all he's doing.
That's
And
right.
An update on the
but
project.
Well, I guess
in
it
the re-
scared
in the re-
everybody with $5.3 million.
Well,
It scared me.
And, yeah, this is just the, I think we'd agreed it would be back in phases because, listen, dealing with the railroad company, this is gonna be a while before, the resolution is completed all the way through. So I think that's what, we came to an agreement
So what
on.
is where's the authorization for H. Davis Cole to do what, or to go out for a bid? What steps have been approved?
Reporting right now. That's all I'm getting.
We've been,
When we came on board, H. Davis Cole had already had a contract in place to look at the weir. And I believe there was upwards, I don't have the exact numbers, but it was around 100,000 that they originally looked at options to do at the weir. Then it came back, it wasn't decided for a while whether it was debated, or we're gonna do this project or we're not. Would the city participate or would they not? And so we got back with the city of Gonzales. We got a conclusion of what they were gonna do. I think their board even voted on it, that they were okay with the project moving forward. Then we brought it back to the drainage board here to amend his contract for the proposal of the final design of the weir project. And it amended Davis Cole's contract to a total of 700-some-odd-thousand for design. But it was also stated at the time that the total budget of the project was around $5 to $6 million. And we asked the wishes of the board, do we want to move forward with design, and it was voted to do that. And then at the time, we did say that at the final design, we would come back to the board prior to bidding to make sure we're on the same direction of what this board wants to do. And so right now, we're just giving you a status update, and later on, he's up for renewal, just an annual renewal of a contract.
and as Ron alluded to, we've permitted and begun design on the entire stretch of this project, which allows us to, when the time comes, when we have everything permitted and designed, to make intelligent decisions about what phases of the project we'd like to construct at a given point. And one of the things I'd like to emphasize is that because this is an excavation project that we can bid on a unit price contract, we'll have a lot of options when the time comes on how to scale the project to parish funds. That's by design, the way we have this set up. But one of the things that we're trying to do is avoid having to go back to the Corps and avoid having to go back to various agencies to say, well, okay, we're going to go from this point to this point. Now we'd like to extend it a few hundred feet in this direction. We have a little bit more funds than we thought, or we'd like to delete this section from the project. So as Ron and Joe have alluded to, yes, we'll be, once we get this thing designed, we'll have further conversations about when and where we'd like to construct first.
And also, Ron, I know we had talked about this, goes all the way back up to Highway 73 on Southwood Village. How many districts will this affect and help with this project?
The upper branches of the whole project, yes, it would go through several districts. It goes, starting right at, the boundaries of this scope is from the weir at Walmart and Weber City Road, and it would end at Cornerview Road and Smith Bayou and New River intersection, which is right by West Main Street.
Correct.
So that's the extent of this project, but the upper streams of that goes all the way to Highway 30 is New River, and then the Bayou Goudin goes up through all the way to Prairieville by St. John Church and 73.
Yeah, so this is going to be a major improvement if, when we get to that point. Johnny, you had anything?
Yeah, I think some of the discussions that I've been involved in, they did approach the city, and the city is already contributing to our drainage fund considerably. Am I correct, Ron, on that? So they were concerned with aesthetics and beauty. They wanted it to be pretty. We said, we're all about drainage. We want to move the water. And so you're gonna approach this project from drainage, and if there's something they want done separately with park benches or something to dress it up, that would be their part, correct, Ron? And they agreed with that. So I would assume part of the funding that we get from the city will be used toward this project, obviously. It goes in the big fund, and we spend it accordingly, correct?
We will not get any funding from them specifically to this project. We get the funding through them paying the millage tax and
Okay.
the drainage tax.
Part of the taxing district.
Mr. Bill?
So I guess I beat this around enough, but I'm gonna just, finish with, it sounds like we're going and doing the engineering, and it sounds like we're going to get a permit, and we still haven't made a decision about how much we're gonna do.
Yeah, Ron, or maybe yourself, cost benefit on this project. What is the cost benefit to the public on this 5.3 million? Are we having some flooding issue now?
Yeah.
I know on the upper contributed, you know, the, down the road could help, you know, but just on this particular phase of the project, other than getting rid of the weir. Which
I
that
would-
was the whole, you know, point was just to get rid of the weir from the start.
Well,
I didn't think it would cost 5.3 million.
I think one of the biggest benefits that you would get is the bayous are staying elevated above the weir, as we know. And we saw it the last couple of weeks in Bayou Goudin, Bayou Grand South. The Bayou Goudin stays at elevation 3.2 or 4, I believe it is, on the gauges, whether we pumping and raining or not, it's that high. And so if the weir is taken out, you would get the retention of that basin for that whole stretch that currently stays elevated. So prior to a rain event, you would be able to have retention in that area, whereas right now, we can pump all the way down, and you're still holding that elevation up in that entire basin upstream of the weir. So that would be the benefit is
And-
creating all of that retention for that basin upstream of the
And
weir.
I understand that, but give me,
Exactly.
by just taking the weir out, wouldn't you have the same effect?
There you go.
You'll have this.
Because you pretty much have a downhill drain, you know, from up north coming south, you know.
When you remove the weir, the profile of the channel goes up and down a little bit. So by coming back through, it really needs to be at a consistent elevation, working backwards from the weir. If we don't do that, we'll have some areas where water will still be trapped, which would more or less defeat the purpose of what we're trying to accomplish. So there are some portions of when you pull out the weir, there may be some portions that are higher than the weir farther back that may need to be cut out
Oh, I
so that you
understand
can
that,
pull through the entire section with the pumping station.
And in the past, we have done some in-house projects like this. We're not, you know, maintenance project. I'd call this a maintenance project, not a dredging project.
It is a major maintenance activity.
But we've done some major maintenance projects in the past, is what Ryan, we don't have the capability of that anymore, or? I know we did New River up to us, almost to that point.
We did
just
some shredding.
Shredding and, yeah, minor maintenance, you know.
Yeah, this would be a pretty intense overhaul of New River. It would be, I'm not saying our staff is not capable, they're certainly capable of the type of work. It's just the magnitude and the time frame that this would take to do it. It would be a considerable effort to get that done.
Mr. Sadler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sir. I don't want to play engineer because I'm not an engineer. I know very little about this, but I do recall lots of discussions early on that maybe the only thing we need to do is just remove the weir, and correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I had heard that if we did so, I believe the term that was used was there would just be natural scouring some of these high areas you're talking about anyway. Is that so, or is it absolutely necessary to, you know, you said we'd be essentially in the same boat again because we'd have water build up at various spots along this project, even if you take the weir out, and therefore I think you said it would defeat the purpose. Not quite sure if I'm convinced that's the case. And also I would want to know, in addition to Todd Lambert's comments about what the cost benefit is, how much of this 3 million is for weir removal, and how much is for, I guess, the overall deepening in some places, not deepening in others of the full channel that we'd be cutting out?
The weir removal would be a minimal part of it. I can't speak to exactly how much the weir removal itself would be, but it would be a small portion of the overall project. The majority of the effort would be in the excavation of the material. It'll be actually allowing us to, pulling the weir out is important from a construction standpoint, that it will allow.
And if we pulled it out, we could pump down.
You can pump down, but you wouldn't have a controlled, you would have some scour over time, but you would not have necessarily a very controlled development of your cross-section. In this case, what we're doing is we're trying to make the channel a consistent, uniform shape.
So we're paying a lot of money to be
maximize-
sure it's consistent, sloping on the banks and 2.5 feet deep the entire length of the project. That's
We're-
where the main money's going.
Yes, that's correct.
And once that's done, what's our guarantee it won't silt in and be a problem again, or?
Well, with any drainage channel, you are going to have some maintenance that has to be done over time. It will.
And that's all on us as well, Mr. Chairman, or City of Gonzales doesn't participate in that? I see a lot of head nods in the negative direction from my colleagues.
No, that's on us.
Thank you.
Mr. Randy.
Real quick, and this is an update, not asking for a vote tonight, right?
Correct.
That's
And-
correct. Just an update.
Right, and the, in regards to who does the work, the design has to be done regardless of
Yeah.
who does the work. So.
Well, I'm saying this is an update tonight. You're
Yes.
just kind of updating us. Well, I'm gonna ask, the chair will either set you free or not. I'm just speaking, but, you come back, can you give us a split on removing the weir, cleaning that up
Sure, we can.
versus
Okay.
channel improvement and dredging,
We can certainly provide that.
sloping, you know?
Right, we'll work with.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson, go ahead.
Just to clarify a point, the city may not be chipping in extra money, and it's not in my district, but the city is part of the drainage district.
That's right.
So the people within the city are paying tax dollars towards the project, the money, where the money's gonna come from. So they are paying for it, their portion of it, like everybody else would be, like any other project that we do. But conversations I've had in the past with this, a question about it would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, majority of the cost of this project would be to dispose of the dirt if we don't have another place for it because of the weight and where it's coming out of the bottom of the ditch like it would be with any other project, correct? Or is it in the maintenance of actually digging the dirt? We already said the weir is probably a minimal part of the overall project, but digging all that yardage of material out of the channel is, we're gonna have to put it somewhere and get rid of it, correct?
Right, there are some disposal costs that are associated with it. I'd like to review that a little bit more before I speak to it specifically. But this type of drainage excavation is typically expensive due to not only the removal of the material with water in it, but also, in this case, we will have to dispose of some of it, in that we are placing 20,000 yards of maybe a quarter of it, we are placing back in the channel to fill in some spots that have kind of sloped in, sloughed in. So, yes, in answer to your question, the majority of it does have to do with handling the earthwork.
So are we still looking at potentially, I don't know what the right word would be, but using some local property to place the excavated soil there to let it dry so it's not as much weight, so we can haul more in per trucks and save some cost in that type of part of the
Certainly.
project?
That option would be on the table, yes. And that's something that we're working through as we proceed to the final design.
Okay, thank you.
Well, David, looks like you have your homework cut out for you, but definitely I think we're looking at phasing and anything that we can do to reduce that, holding the water back, that's what I'm looking for. So, Ron, you had anything on closing?
Joey was giving.
Yeah, I
Joe,
do
I'm
have another, if y'all finish with David.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can move on to the next one.
Yeah, we have the Fish Bayou project, and I have Ms. Kimberly Cole is here with GSA to present and ask questions there.
Good evening. Our public comment period at the Corps was opened on September 4th and closed on September 24th. There were no extensions requested, so it is closed. The Corps is now reviewing and vetting any comments they've received, and if there are any that they think we need to respond to, they'll send it to us to respond to. And they're also in their technical review phase, so they're going through any reports and documents that we've submitted for technical merit. This is when they'll start, forming their documentation in support of the permit. So this is usually the longest phase of permitting, and this is when we'll see the most benefit from the 214 agreement.
Sounds good. Ms. Terry, you have anything on fish?
Certainly. I want to thank Kimberly. They have been doing a great job. I also heard from Mr. Bonifay that he is enjoying very much working with Kimberly. And, you know, that's not often said by Mr. Bonifay, so I'll share that with you. And so I'm delighted that the 214 seems to be approaching us, helping us to approach this in a better way, and certainly hope that we can get a permit by the end of the year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's it. Thanks.
Appreciate you, Joe. We'll move on to number 7, approval of professional engineering design. Ms. Jones?
Good evening. On June 26, 2018, the Purchasing Department received 9 proposals for professional engineering design and related services in support of Ascension Parish drainage pumping stations. After review, on July 26, the Ascension Parish Engineering Selection Committee recommended requesting oral presentations from the 3 highest-ranked proposals, Adura, Burke Klein Peter, and Infinity. After completion of oral presentations, the Ascension Parish Engineering Selection Committee recommend accepting the highest-ranked proposal submitted by Adura and to authorize the parish president to begin contract negotiations for this service.
Move to accept the recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any opposition to the motion? None, motion passed. Number 8, authorization. Mr. Joey Turo.
This is authorization to extend and amend the contract between HNTB and East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District Number 1 for an additional year to August 7th for a floodplain management plan with a remaining balance of $140,356 for a new contract term, and authorize President Kenny Matassa to sign any and all documents pertaining to said contract.
Move to extend the contract.
Moved by Mr. Dawson.
Second.
Second by Mr. Johnny. We have 2 speakers on this agenda item. First one is Clint Whitmore.
Good evening. Since the firm adjustments is part of the overall floodplain, I want to speak briefly on the new firms that are present at the parish complex as well as on Church Point. There are some concerns immediately concerning those that have been proposed and sent to the Corps. For example, you have a reduction in the base flood in Sorrento from 7 to 6. We have a massive amount of flooding that took place in Sorrento, so lowering that building requirement to a lower standard than it is today would be devastating for the town. And so these things need to be looked at. I'm sure the Corps is going to make that assessment, send something back for the public to view, and for y'all to make educated decisions based upon that. It would be a good idea, and just as a suggestion, is to have the IT department go ahead and take the assessor's data components of the flooded properties and go ahead and do an overlay with the adjustments to the new proposed firms so that you can take a look at what areas received heavy flooding and damage, to compare that to the new adjustments so that you can understand those adjustments and whether they need to be made or not. Also, the elevations to those properties are super important because that's going to tell you your water levels at that particular flood event, and you can make better decisions based on those elevations and pertaining to the base floods presented on the firms. Thank you.
Next speaker, we have Jeff Pettit.
Good Good evening, and real quick, Councilman Johnson, the city contributes $3.5 million approximately in ad valorem and sales taxes to East Ascension Consolidated Drainage District Number 1. So of the 20 or so million we take in, the city does contribute.
That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
So, floodplain management. HNTB has delivered a floodplain management program report to this board, and evidently we need to do some tweaking, and if we do, we do, and that's fine. I would ask this board to consider this. In this floodplain management program, we're going to have recommendations to strengthen the rules for development within our parish based on what this report says. I would ask this board to recommend to the council, or consider recommending to the council, a moratorium on major and minor subdivisions until this report comes back before this board and is accepted and approved with the recommendations for development within the floodplain. We all saw with traffic studies that what we had did not accurately reflect the impact on our parish and every citizen in it. My concern is that when we get these recommendations back, and in the meantime, we go full bore forward with development, we're going to do the same thing we did with that delay with traffic impact studies. We're going to do damage. We're not showing the true impact. So I ask this board to consider recommending to the parish council a 6-month moratorium on major and minor subdivisions, or until the floodplain management report is delivered in its final form to this board. Thank you.
Mr. Kluwat, questions?
Yeah, this is for the administration or whomever. This is an extension to August 7th, 2019, and for the remaining balance of $140,356. What's the total value of that contract?
The beginning value prior to?
Yes.
I really don't have that with me now. I don't know how much it was in the beginning. 400,000.
400,000. So they had the contract for 400,000, or did they just? I mean, are we just extending the time, or are we giving them
Correct.
more money?
No, that's what's left.
Yes. What?
That's what's left.
So it's just the time.
We are
spending.
time, yes.
We're not giving. So this was a 400. I just want to make clear this is a $400,000 contract.
Correct.
Did we have the ability to, is this some of this work? I mean, is that your recommendation to do this, or do we have to do this, or could we have looked at somebody else for the remainder of this for the other 140,000? I mean, I'm asking.
Well, I mean, it's the
same
work that they've done
task?
to this point, and it was to, they did the work to try to consolidate our documents and make them make sense to each other. So they've done all that work, and it's really what's whenever we get direction as to where we're going to go with the
Yeah, and that's what I
plan.
understand. So they work in the same task,
Yes.
okay? So why do we have to come back and talk about the other? If they already got the contract for 400,000, why are we sitting here with the 100?
I guess it's just to be able to clean it up once recommendations are made. I mean, the recommendations are there, but whether it's accepted or not, or to make final documents out of their proposal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I mean, we just extend, is the contract up? That's
Yes.
why we're
It would be
extending?
up.
That's correct. Contract time is up.
Okay. So why we didn't get to work in the time of the contract time, or is that a matter of
We're
out of
waiting.
everybody's control or whatever? I don't know. I'm just asking.
No, we're waiting on question as to where do we go with that?
Waiting for us to tell you
Yes,
how high.
that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Sadler.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Councilman Clue, I think, just made a very astute observation as far as the scope of this new work for the $140,000. Quote, seems to be working, or at least that's the answer he got, on the same task for the larger sum that we've already spent with HNTB. My comment on that would, as a follow-up, would be, so how do we know, since you're all saying in-house that this is money for a, quote, cleanup of whatever it is that they've recommended so forth, how do we know what amount that will cost to clean up something we haven't even implemented yet? Does that sort of make sense to anyone?
Well, the work is
It seems to me like
essentially
we're just saying,
accomplished
here's
in,
another $140,000. We assume it's going to be needed, that amount, to fix whatever it is that this board decides, or this commission is, I don't know, unacceptable or needs to be edited or whatever in what they've done so far. And we all have that, but we have not discussed it or debated it at all at public hearings, and clearly it has not been implemented. And that money, by the way, was spent, let me just add, not just to do a floodplain management plan, but also to, I think y'all said something about putting all of our codes together. That's absolutely correct. Drainage impact study language that's in our existing Unified Land Development Code is also involved in this, not just a, quote, plan for the overall parish. This goes all the way back to when Mr. Rue stood in front of us years ago now and said, we're going to find out what a floodplain are in this parish, and I can guarantee this commission that when I do so, I'm going to come before you with a recommendation of a no-fill ordinance. Well, are we going to have that, or are we going to have some fill, or are we going to put up on piers, or are we going to have regional detention ponds? What are we going to have? I don't know. So I'm kind of curious why we're extending a contract another $140,000 to, quote, clean up what we haven't cleaned up yet.
Well, the documents are, their recommendations are all finished. But if there's going to be further discussion, we want them at the table to discuss everything.
So you're telling me that Joey, that they're not obligated to be at the table for the money we've already spent to discuss what they've already done?
We're out of contract time right now.
Guys, let me clear this up, and I don't have this contract in front of me, but I can look at it and answer y'all questions on this. But typically what we do is we approve a not to exceed amount. So we may have a not to exceed $400,000, and then we issue tasks based off of that. And what happens sometimes is the time period of the contract runs out before all the tasks are issued. So sometimes you have to come back and issue another task and reapprove the amounts because the time period's up. So I think y'all were kind of unclear.
Well, I understand the logistics of that, Cody, and I thank you for the explanation, but it just seems to me that part of that original 400, whatever the number was, Mr. Blue, I mentioned a minute ago, $1,000. Whether time ran out or not, time's running out because this board is procrastinating. It's clear from previous meetings that we've talked about, well, we can't just vet this thing that they've done so far because we've got the courthouse to consider yet. We've got a levy project to consider, et cetera, and it may not, I never could figure that out either. It makes sense, those items, depending on what this new floodplain management plan / DIS, drainage impact study language is going to look like. Just my opinion, I'm old and I'm tired, but this just doesn't look good. And I think the public is watching us, and we need to be careful here that they don't view this as we're just, because we're behind in the logistics time frame issue or whatever the issue is, anointing a company another $140,000 on top of $400,000 for something we should have gotten done by now.
Mr. Clue.
Yeah, real quick, Joy, they may or may not spend this $140,000.
Correct. And
It may take
this is not on top of the 400.
May take $5,000 available to wrap this up, or it may take $140,000. That's
Correct.
what it said. Thank you.
Mr. Aaron.
I partially agree with Councilman Satterley. Is that, I think what this comes down to is we have to make a decision. Not anybody out there. The East Ascension Drainage Board has to come down and make a decision on what level we're going to do. and that's on us. I don't know why we're dancing around this. Let's get it done, get it over with. I mean, I've proposed it before, try to get some sort of moratorium until we get this done. Apparently, that's the only way we force getting things done, is if we're going to stop growth. But I mean, every time we add fill in an area that doesn't have the capacity to take the fill, we're going to worsen our drainage problems. So let's get this done. I mean, I understand we're going to have some people with hurt feelings. We're going to have some people who are going to have to alter the way they use their land. We're going to have some people that are going to have to build on pier and piling in the future. But it's a tough decision. Let's make the tough decision. The main concern I have with this is we're extending it 10 months. Let's extend it 2 months, a month, and make the decision. Get together, reach an agreement. Not everybody's going to be happy. We're going to have to compromise on this. I can tell you we're not going to go with no fill. It can't pass. It's not politically feasible. By the same token, we're not going to go with unlimited fill, because that's going to keep us in the same boat that we have been in, and we haven't planned for the future, and we got all these problems now. So if we stick with that, we're going to have bigger problems. So let's get together. Let's find something that we can all agree on. It's not going to be perfect. Not everybody up here is going to agree on it, but dang it, let's do something about this. I oppose extending this to August 7th of 2019. Let's, this contract, I mean, and really the contract, oddly enough, has nothing to do with it. We could extend the contract for another 4 years, or we could do it for another 2 months, or we could do it till tomorrow. If we do it till tomorrow, the council, the East Ascension Drainage Board still has to come up with the decision on what we're going to do about this.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, let's get together and let's get this done. Obviously, I've said that we shouldn't have fill in the flood A&E areas, anything worse than that. But that's not feasible. It's not going to pass. I understand that. I'm willing to compromise on it. So let's get together, let's reach a compromise, and get this done by the end of the year. That's all I have to say.
We have a motion and a second on this to extend it. Any other questions? Mr. Johnson?
Joey, all we waiting on is a decision on the amount of fill for them to proceed with what they need to do? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's part of the big
What are the
package,
the big questions?
get up.
One of the big questions. So, and I'm kind of leaning towards why are we extending it if we don't have a decision on that? That's a decision we have to make, like Councilman Lawler just said. Well, would it be in order to postpone making this decision until we have that? I mean, I agree. Let's get together and come up with a decision for something on the agenda for next month, make a decision on it one way or the other, and then we can look at this. But I mean, if we're going to get this contract out and we don't have a decision, we're still waiting on a decision from us, we're just putting good money out for bad, in my opinion. I'd make it a motion that we table this for a month.
Well, the only thing is,
You're running out of time.
All you're doing is extending.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, and I agree with Aaron. I mean, if they can do this within a year's time, or within a shorter period of time, let's come up with what our answer is going to be to give to them, to give them 4 or 5 months, whatever it may be, to get their information together and get back with a plan to us so we can start implementing it. But I mean, we got to quit putting this off.
Mr. Lang?
I agree with Benny. If this is our decision, what are we waiting on? It's not the HNTB. We need to move forward. This board is ready to move. Make the decision and move forward with it. If the contract is complete, the project is complete.
Regardless, we would want HNTB to just finish it up. If it's
so you're saying it's not finished? The project is not finished?
I mean, it's probably very little left to do. If it's agreed whole in whole of what HNTB proposes, there's probably not much left to do. I would still like to have them on board in case there's
But I want the public to know that, if it's waiting on us, we ready to move on it. And that's why I want to make sure administration is aware that, don't wait on us. We're ready to get this sent to us and move forward with it.
Mr. Klubai?
Yeah, I somewhat agree we need to make a decision. So it don't matter if we put August of 2019 or put December of 2019 or 2020, okay? But I definitely disagree that this board is not ready to make a decision based on the meetings I've been in, the different opinions we've had, and the revocations of any opinion or any definite rule on the height of elevation and everything. Being the district that I serve, there's a lot at stake on any decision, okay? And so I'm all right with just giving the extension right now. So I can tell you, I'm not ready to make a decision tonight on that elevation, so I'm honest, okay? Thank you.
Mr. Bill?
So the way I see it, we have a substitute motion. Is that what Councilman Johnson had that in a second, Mr. Lambert? Which is to, what
Bring
is?
this back next month and have something on it, have some meetings and get a decision on where we're gonna land with Phil for next month.
Okay, so let me just say that we have to remember that the company is out here, they don't have a contract.
That's it.
So we've already brought them in and we've done some work. Some of you have gone to those meetings and weren't able to charge time. You're gonna bring people in and have them prepare for us to make that decision. They're not gonna be able to charge time. I don't think that's right. I mean, we need to make a decision. I agree 1,000% with that, and I asked that question several months ago. However, you know, we can't just not pay these people for the work they've done and the people and the work that they need to do in preparation. So I'm against the substitute motion. I'm for the main motion.
Yeah, me too.
Let me ask a clarified question, then, if I may. So the information they have to us, we don't have enough information to make a decision off of, and we need more information from them? I mean, if we do, I don't have a problem with paying them for it. I'm not trying to get work out of them for nothing, but I mean, if
Well, they've already worked for nothing, because those meetings, we've already had some meetings, they presented things to us, and their contract is not, they don't currently have a contract, okay? As far as, you know, I don't know what kind of information you guys are gonna want,
They're gonna be paid.
but I suspect that some people are gonna wanna know what's the effect of limiting the field to nothing, what's the effect of limiting the field to 1 foot, what's the effect of limiting it to 2, 3, what effect is that gonna have on the parish? Where is that gonna be?
I withdraw that, the more information I didn't have, I withdraw that motion to suspend it.
Second.
All right, we have a
Mr.
motion. Mr. Sadler?
I was going to second Mr. Johnson. I've had my hand up for a while. Motion just was, and I realize you're trying to keep everything, and you're doing a good job of that. But if he's withdrawn it, I'd like to make it back again, and I would ask for a second.
Guys, let me offer something to y'all that might solve the problem that y'all are dealing with here. Like I said before, this is a task order contract. You can approve the extension, but then limit the task. So if you want to approve the extension with the amount, but then limit the task that you instruct the administration to move forward with, you can control the amount of money spent in the time period through the individual task orders and not affect the entirety of the whole contract.
I think
Would that
that's
have
what-
to be part of the motion,
That's what the motion does.
or does it?
All you gotta
No,
do is
this
got the motion in
motion
front of us.
says that we're not gonna renew the contract, won't bring it back up for a month.
No, so I withdrew that.
I know, that's,
But-
but he
Oh,
remade it.
yeah, redoing it, but
You don't have a second yet.
No.
Are we clear on legal? Or what do you want to do with this? I mean,
I'm ready to vote.
you got a motion.
We got a motion and a second, you got a motion with no second.
Mr. Aaron?
Well, first of all, I think any contractor needs to be paid for the work that they do in the parish. My main concern, though, is that, first of all, we do need to have an understanding. If we have questions, we need somebody with the expertise to answer those questions. I don't want to put anybody on this council or anybody in the public in a position where we're trying to make decisions without having the expertise that we need to have it. My concern was not with HNTB's contract or the length of the contract per se. It's that we on this board are going to view this as an extension of time until August of 2019 to make a decision. This doesn't have that much to do with the contract. I have no problem with the contract going to August 2019 because we may have questions, but I think we should be able to make a decision within 60 days. So I'll make a substitute motion that we extend the contract until December 31st of 2018. That should give us enough time to make a decision. If not, we can renew it by then. But that puts a little bit of the burden on us as this board to hurry up and get things moving, ask the questions we have to ask, make the decision, however painful it may be, make that decision.
So I'll second that, subject to the administration. You guys okay? You think that is December? Is that good enough for?
Ain't no way.
Think so?
Okay, I'll second that motion.
All right, so we have a, Mr. Sadler.
Yep, this discussion of the motion and seconded. I'm just going to throw a little more kerosene on the fire. Are we here tonight to admit in public that we do not have the existing in-house drainage engineer expertise to vet HNTB's floodplain management plan proposal and its suggested alteration to our drainage impact study Unified Land Development Code? Is that what we're saying? Now, let me also be on record to say this. I've heard it from several of my colleagues, and I agree with all of them. I'm for paying people what they're justly due for the work they did. The problem continues to be, as in so many things we do around here, we've got a bunch of carts again in front of the horses. We should be making a final decision, in my humble opinion, on the floodplain management plan and the DIS recommendations of HNTB, however it has to happen, long before we extend any contracts for any given amount of money that may or may not be spent, et cetera, to keep them, quote, at the table because of our procrastination. This body needs to move, and I think they need to move, as a former president of the United States once said, with vigor. We are lucky that we're about facing down the end of the current hurricane season, that maybe we'll be spared another great flood of 2016 this year. And like one of the public speakers said, we can ill afford to continue, like we did with TIS, to procrastinate and allow a whole bunch of more subdivisions to be developed that may not have been developed, or how they were developed, the way in which they were developed, if we'd have had FMP and the DIS alterations, in vogue. That's permanent, harmful damage, and it just, quite frankly, we need to belly up to the bar and stop it. And I think we have a good chance to do that tonight. So I'm going to support this amended motion in a moment. It's not exactly what I'd like to see, but it's a lot better than I think what we were proposing. Thank you for listening.
So with the substitute motion, extension of 90 days to bring back,
It's not 90.
or just end of the year.
December 31st.
Any objection to the substitute motion?
I object.
Roll call, Ms. Deb.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
What is the tally?
5-4.
It's 5-4 pass.
5-4, which way? Pass?
Motion passed.
Yes.
Wasn't counting, obviously.
Motion, substitute motion passed. With that, we'll move on to number 9, another authorization. Ron?
This is extend and amend the contract, professional service engineering between HNTB and East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District for an additional year, November 10th, 2019, for levy certification, including engineering fees of $225,000 for a new contract term, and authorize parish president to sign any and all documents pertaining to the said contract.
Question.
Mr. Kluwat, question?
Yeah, once more, this particular contract here, the additional year, and for levy certification to include engineering fees of $225,000. So, what was the total value of this contract?
I would ask Melissa to come up on that. I will state that the Lomer is involved with this for the Bayou Boyle and Conway Basin. That contract is expiring, and that project is still ongoing. And the other 200,000 is going to be towards the item 10 coming up next.
Well, I just want, so, I didn't get an answer, basically. What is it you asking? Levy certification include engineering fees of $225,000 and extended. Is this an addition to a contract, extension to a contract, amendment to a contract in dollars?
Yes, it is both
So
extension and amendment.
what was the total value of this particular contract?
I'll
That's
have to
what I'm
check.
asking.
Around 1.3 million, sir.
So so the last one was a $400,000 one to HMTB. This one's 1.3 million.
Yes.
And, right now, we burning on the 1.3. So where are we at? What does the 225 do? Where are we at in this 1.3?
What this will do is, if the next item goes through, we will look at the 1.2 billion in grant money coming down, utilizing funding for that.
Yeah, I know what that one's for, but so you're saying that this particular contract is ending and for additional year and include engineering fees of $225,000 is part of a $1.3 million contract.
It is, yeah.
Okay, and that's not including the 400,000 that we just talked about a while ago.
That's correct.
So right now they're at 1.7 million. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Bill.
Maybe I'd like to make sure that I understand it correctly. So this contract that says levy certification, that's the contract that the FEMA work is being done under in Bayou Boyle and Bayou Panama Conway. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And what other work is being done under this contract?
There's some proposals for possible, they're going to study to see if there's benefit for other work, such as those listed, pumping.
But that's in number 10. Or what? Tell me that. So you're going to move, is 200,000 of the 225 for number 10?
Yes.
Well, why is it in number 9?
Whoops.
I guess that should have been stated, like you said, in number 10. Should have been 25,000 for item 9. And in addition to number 10 would have been the 200,000.
So we should strike 220, replace that with 25 on number 9. Is that not correct?
Yes, sir.
And then under this is that FEMA work. So how much time do we need to complete that work? We don't need a year, because that's been going on since 2016.
Right. Everything's in FEMA's hands now. They have the maps, and that's the process, and that'll take to find out, exactly how, if FEMA agrees with everything, or it's a set process.
So I would say maybe 31 January. They should be finished with that.
I can't guarantee that because
Well, you can come back to us.
we could do that, yes.
So I would make a motion that we amend this. Instead of it being 225,000, it's 25,000, and change that from an additional year, scratch that out, and then put to January 31, 2019.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Lambert. Discussion on the motion. Any opposition? None, motion passed. Until the big one, number 10, authorization, Ron. And this is what we're trying to approve, these three, work on these three items.
I think you'd have to add into this item that you want to extend and amend the contract for authorization of professional service engineering contract for HNTB in the amount of not to exceed $200,000 for the levy certification contract and include grant services. And the project will be as listed below.
Or we could just cannot combine that, whatever you want to do. What, Mr. Dawson?
Well, I mean, since we have them as separate items, I'd say they should remain.
Already took action on number 9.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
all right.
but then I would also make this motion that we amend this and to add, to include engineering fees of $200,000 for the new contract term.
Ron just said yes. That's what Ron said.
Is that right, Cody? You okay with whatever, I mean,
Not, not to exceed 200?
not to exceed 200,000, yes.
I got a question.
Is the time period still good?
Yeah, that's
gonna
my
be a
question, what time
for
Right.
Administration.
Well, they're gonna, I mean, so I had some comments on this, but, you know, one of the, you know, here was the thing with this, that when I first brought this up, I said I wanted to do an RFQ for this work, which is these two pumping to the river and the levee certification. I was told by the administration that there wasn't time to do a RFQ because this legislation is supposed to be promulgated in December, and we want to be ready to submit in December. So what I'm saying now is that we need to have this ready for December. We need to have it ready by January 31st. I don't see any reason to extend the term. If they don't have it ready for some reason, the federal government hadn't promulgated the regulations, then we can extend them at that time. But I don't think that 131 is an issue here at this point.
Mr. Johnson?
I guess my only question, we said December, but we put it as the end of January, so I mean, is the
Well, gave
deadline
them my
December or is
extra
it January? Well, that's what I'm asking, Bill, because I agree with you. I mean, we need to have this before, it's all about getting the grant money through the feds, and if we're not gonna have it in time for that, then there's no sense
Well,
in.
the only reason I'm saying to make January 31st, because we don't know when those regulations are going to be promulgated.
Right.
We've been promised, we were actually promised that they'd have been promulgated back this summer.
Right.
Now they're telling us November or December, so I'm just adding a month on there for that, but,
Safety purpose.
But if they come out and they're due in December, we gave them to January, we're gonna miss the deadline?
well, just because we extend that contract to January 31st doesn't mean that the work doesn't need to be completed.
Yeah, once again, remember, we issue
Yeah.
those task orders and we can control the date through the task
I'm
order.
fine with that.
Clear? We clear? Mr. Kluwer?
Yeah, I got a couple questions.
Did you get a second?
Yes, Todd.
Yeah, Todd seconded it.
Mr. Kluwer, go ahead.
I thought you was looking at Todd,
No,
see
go
if
ahead.
he's second.
Hey,
All right, based on the 1.2 billion, that's coming in, you know, and, you know, most of us has had discussions on this, and the short time frame, you're saying that we didn't go out, that's what, you know, the administration's out there, we didn't go out to try to seek somebody else, that we grabbed somebody that we already had a contract with, okay? So, you know, give it to this firm. So where did this list of projects come from? And are we hell-bent on these three projects?
so
I mean, I think,
can
I
answer that.
seen somebody else submit a more comprehensive list of projects, but it wasn't these in there, and I don't have a problem with these. Is this the list of the tasks right here?
So
I thought
let's,
we'd been working on certifying the Lawry's levy for years now. What's up with that? I thought that was part of an HMTB task already.
okay, so I don't know about that, but where these projects came from, and myself, along with consultation with some other council people, However, what it says is, it says they will include but are not limited to. So all this says is that these three things will be evaluated.
Okay.
There is a list, and GSA has a list, and I don't know who all else has a list, but there are maybe more than one list, but this is, and I'll go through the reasons here if you
Sure, Mr.
don't mind. I planned on doing this, which is that, what we've been told is, and the Laurel Ridge levy certification, I think that's something that's just for, maybe that's more parochial for Ascension Parish. But that could have a tremendous impact on what our citizens are paying for flood insurance.
Right.
It could be millions of dollars a year
preaching to the choir here.
savings. So, yeah, and you're in that. I agree. But the other projects are there because they are major projects that we've heard could cost in the hundreds to hundreds of millions of dollars. So what we've been told by Mr. Graves' office is that there was $1.4 billion that was given out earlier. $700 million of that went to that West Shore project south of us. About $600 million of it, so for all intents and purposes, the whole thing went to these two places. $600 million went to East Baton Rouge Parish for Comead River and for drainage projects in Baton Rouge. And so what we're saying is that the reason you got that $1.2 billion, and Garrett Graves has told us this, and we all know this, is because of the devastation that was caused in the 2016 flood. Now, they took $1.4 billion, and they took care of those parishes, some of those parishes that suffered. We were among those major parishes that suffered. They didn't allocate any funds to Ascension Parish in that $1.4 billion. So now we're saying, this is our turn, and we need to get there early, and we've got support from Paul Sawyer and from Garrett Graves that they also believe that too, that Ascension's turn is, we should be near the head of the line. And that these are projects that fit that criteria that they enumerated to us, which is multi-parish, projects that fit in a watershed. All of these are projects, not the levy certification. The two main pumping projects are projects that pump water out of the Amite River Basin and the Lake Maurepas area. And so, that's what they're telling us that qualifies. And we're saying, let's do that in our parish because we have access to the Mississippi River. We have access to the waterway, so let's pump it in the Sorrento area and let's pump it in the Bayou Manchac area.
Yeah, if you were talking to me, I know that already, and I agree.
I'm talking that mostly to the public. I understand that you know, but I'm trying to
I just want to
have
make sure
people
that everybody
understand
that I ain't ignorant
what
sitting
we're
up
trying
here,
to
okay?
do here.
All right, I'm just trying to see where the exact project came from. They were all discussed. So, the Laurel Ridge levy certification, we supposedly had a decent amount of groundwork on that. And so, do we have a dollar value on that? And you see where that stands for as getting it going. We've spent some money with some engineering firms on that. So, I guess they got any answers tonight. What is the value of this contract? Once more?
$200,000. $200,000.
And
not to exceed
is that
$200,000.
is that coming out of any other pot, or this is new money that we're approving right now?
This is coming from this 225 that was in item number 9.
Okay. Good deal. Thank you.
Mr. Aaron.
I'd like to also kind of accentuate to the public why this is important and put in another way of viewing it. For years, we've worked on getting traffic solutions, and we've seen interchanges be built in other parishes because they had the projects ready to go, designed, and other parishes got road funds that I believe should have gone to Ascension Parish because we weren't ready to get those funds. What we're trying to do here is there's $1.2 billion that is now going to be made available, and we need to get ready, have a plan to present that is capable of earning this money. I mean, that's what it's about, earning this money. If we do what we've done in the past on road projects, we're going to have nothing. We're just going to go to the federal government and say, hey, give us a couple dollars. This is what we think we can do with it. This is about being prepared to go to the federal government, to have a plan that is going to be multi-parish and provide benefits to this is going to be hundreds of thousands of people in southern Baton Rouge, in Iberville Parish, in northern Ascension Parish, in the Santa Ma area, in the Sorrento area. I mean, this is going to benefit hundreds of thousands of people, but if we don't have a plan, we're not going to get this money. And there's no guarantee that this money goes to the Ascension Parish, or to Ascension Parish, or to the Ascension Parish area. This money can be spent anywhere in the state. So if we're not prepared and have a good plan to present, we're not going to get this money. That's why this is important.
Thank you for summing that up.
Yes, I just want to make clear to everybody, I'm not against this. I've been.
Trust me, we know.
I've been working with this for a long time, including Garrett Graves, okay? I'm just trying to see where we got to this contract tonight. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to just implore my fellow members of this drainage board. This is a one-time shot to develop a good plan to present to the Corps. God forbid that we ever have this opportunity again. We don't want it.
We're never going to have it
We never want to have it again. We need to, if this is the only chance we have, first off, I get called every time there's a flood in my Spanish Lake Bluff Swamp Basin. Could we pump this water to the Mississippi River? And every time I say, we do not have the resources in Ascension Parish to do this. It is beyond our capacity. It would take every drainage dollar we were ever going to spend for time for over many, many, many years. So this is a chance, and I'm begging you, let's at least know if this is feasible, if there's a cost benefit and a regional benefit, and be able to either say honestly to our constituents one way or the other, we can do this or we cannot. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second on this. Appreciate all the discussion on it, but like you said, we have to be ready when the funding's coming down. So thank y'all for this. Any objection to the motion? Not, motion passed. Right, number 11, authorization to renew contract. Mr. Joe.
This is authorization to renew the contract for professional engineering services between H. Davis Cole and East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District Number 1 for the New River Canal Weir and Improvement Project for an additional year to November 2nd, 2019, with a remaining balance of $315,000 for a new contract term, and to authorize Parish President Kenny Matassa to sign any and all documents pertaining to said contract.
Mr. Johnny?
This is the same situation as before. This is a time extension, correct?
Yes.
And the reason they're not certain is because of the permitting process. And I'm in favor of it, so I'll make a motion that we approve.
Moved by Mr. Johnny,
I'll say.
second by Mr. Benny. Discussion?
Quick question.
Question?
Back to my notes from our earlier discussions on this project. This brings the engineering fees, everything to with a possibility of $750,000.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any objections to the motion? None, motion passed. All right, number 18, executive session.
Motion going.
Moved by Mr. Dawson.
Roll call.
We skip. Second by Mr. Lambert. Roll call, Ms. Debbie.
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Motion to reconvene, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to reconvene, Mr. Lambert, second by Mr. Johnny.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn by Mr.
Second.
Second.
Bill, second by Mr. Todd. To adjourn.